Hi there, viewers. We've got an amazing show today with different booktubers with us. We have Oscar Printzlau, Naomi Forster,
Hi.
Noah Cross,
Hello.
and I left a link in the description part of this conversation to everyone's channel where you'd be able to find them and their works. I'll leave them to introduce themselves one after the other, and we'd love to start from Oscar.
Yes, my name is, as was said, Oscar Printzlau, and I live in Denmark. And I got into booktubing at first because I am the only one really that I know that reads a lot. So it was kind of a lonely hobby for me.
Oh,
So I was watching two booktube channels, not the small ones, some of the bigger ones, and I thought they were very entertaining. So I thought, why not, make my own booktube channel and see if I can, find people to talk about books with. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to be on here, and hopefully we'll have a fun time discussing the books that we love.
yeah, Naomi.
Hi, I'm Naomi Forster and I live in London in England. My channel is called You Are Here. Uh, Basically, I'm a teacher of deaf and teacher of deaf-blind children in a really diverse part of London, North London. And I wanted to share books about diverse identities and think about how different um, identities are represented in fiction. So my channel kind of looks at a wide range of text types and genres, but always kind of through a lens of representation and intersectional identities. I have always loved reading, and a chance to share my love of reading and talk about books is fabulous. So that's why I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today to talk more about books.
Yeah, that sounds nice. Noah.
Hi, I'm Noah Crozier. I'm from Manchester in the UK, and my channel's called In Between the Lines. My friend actually gave me the idea to do this because we just go out for coffee and talk about books constantly, and it get to a point where we can kind of like, why don't we make like a community of this where we can all just talk about it and get together with like-minded people, and that's where that basically stemmed from.
That's great. It's quite fun to get to know everyone's response to this. Now let's talk about our most favorite read. I feel like everyone has that book that pulls them in tricks, and I always love to talk about in a bookish environment or setup like this. Now, is there a book that you'd love dearly and would love to talk about? Love to start from Noah.
That's a difficult thing because I have so many books that I absolutely love to go back and to read. I
Oh,
think, oh God, see, my favorite kind of books is like the cosmic horror sort of stuff. So I always go back to like Lovecraft, and I always try to jam like the Mountains of Madness down my friends' throats because of the atmosphere that it brings. But it's a whole different ball game for them.
Naomi.
Uh, like you say, there are so many books. Um, the, Probably one that I'd like to highlight is the books Reardon, and particularly the Percy Jackson stories. So these are a set of stories all based on from mythological stories. And I picked up Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief for my year 6 class at the time, before it became a big thing, and before that really awful film. Uh, I was just really excited to find a book where differences that are usually seen as disabilities, such as dyslexia, ADHD, are like heroic strengths, and you've got the centaurs and the satyrs are hiding their feet behind physical disabilities. It was a very different way of looking at disability, and it kind of dragged me in. And the stories are exciting and engaging, and so much more palatable than the traditional myths they're based on. So I just love them.
Oh, that's great. I was wondering if we have the copies of the book we'll be talking about in our hands. We can just show to the camera. Now, but let's go to Oscar. Let's get your response to that.
Yeah. So I read mostly fantasy, and so my favorite book is a fantasy book. It's called The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I don't know if you guys know it, but I really love this book. It's a book in a series, the first book in a long series. I think it's like 1,200 pages each or something like that.
Wow.
But I really like, it's an epic fantasy, and it's amazing at setting up epic stories, and the world building is very detailed. You get to know a lot of different cultures within the world, and you sort of into between parts of the book, you visit other people in a totally different part of the world, so you also get to understand, how different it is at the other side of the world, basically. And it really gives a detailed look at the world, whilst also having very, very interesting characters that are very well developed. And within each book, you then have as like a flashback plot for each of the main characters that then switches between each of the books. So the further books you get into the story, the more you get to know the different main characters. And I love it.
Yeah, that's great. I've heard quite a lot of things about Sanderson. Everybody talk about him
Yeah.
in BookTube. And now I'd also love to share my own most favorite read. I love the Cracklock Saga book series. It's quite like a new book that most people do not get to know about. So this is like a Fox book series, 4. I've read 3. I think we still have more coming on the series, but I've read the 3 of it. The Cracklock Sagas is one of the fantastic books that I love to, always recommend and talk about. I don't know if you have other copies there with you, Noah and Naomi. If you have a copy of the book you talk about, you love to show physically.
I couldn't find it. We've been doing lots of renovations, and I think Percy Jackson, my son has run off with, and it's probably in his room somewhere. So I'm really sorry. What I'll do is I'll send you a screenshot of the book cover so you can add it in or something. But it is somewhere in that archaeological dig that is my son's bedroom.
I have a version of the book. 1 second. It's a bit big.
Okay.
It's this chunky thing. It's full of all the short stories, basically. So it's in here somewhere.
Wow.
This Tomb of a Beast.
Is that all the Lovecraft stories?
Pardon?
Is that all the Lovecraft stories?
It is, yeah.
I've read one of them, but it was a short story. I don't know
Yeah.
how they are.
Yeah, no, he is very much a short story writer.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I also want to ask the next question on our list. What makes a good story to you? Everybody have the features and qualities that they're looking forward while reading a book. So I want to ask, what are the qualities that makes a good book? Are there certain features that you look out in a book that makes it a great read to you? Love to start from Oscar.
Yeah. I think usually the most important thing for a good book is the character writing. I think from the few literary fiction books that I've read, there's this weird split between literary fiction that very much often wants to be philosophical, but then sometimes forgets the characters. And then there's some of the other books, more of the standard genre fiction that really is, especially in fantasy, I'd say, afraid to get philosophical and then only focuses on the characters. But I kind of feel like I read The Great Gatsby, which it's a very interesting book with very interesting themes, but the characters themselves aren't very captivating, and I think that misses a lot of what the story could achieve, because I think a story that has great themes and philosophical topics would only be amplified by the emotions you feel whilst reading them. So if you have good character writing whilst also reading a very thematic book, I think that theme sticks with you a lot more. So the primary thing I usually look for is characterization, and then obviously philosophical themes and world building and stuff like that is a plus. But yeah.
That's great. Naomi.
I agree. Characters are like I would say characters are the most important thing to me. I love stories that kind of draw me into the character's mind and show me how things seem from their viewpoints, so that I'm learning about other ways of viewing the world, I guess. Um, I like it when writers really respect their characters and make them entirely real, making decisions, making mistakes, hurting, rejoicing because of how things are for them, whether they're right or wrong. And characters who grow and learn are really important to me. And maybe that's why I'm not fixed in one genre, because those things can happen in every genre. And I think that's what draws me in.
Oh, that's great. Noah.
I seriously couldn't agree more. It's all about the depth of the characters. I want to know their fears, their story. I want to know everything about them. The reason why I read is for that getaway from the real life. So to be able to learn about these characters, kind of see from their point of view all these amazing and fantastical things, I'm there for that. Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. It's quite fascinating to know every reader loves characterization in a novel. Even myself, I did love characterization in a novel.
I think characterization in general is I think I've heard Brandon Sanderson speak of this, where he
Uh,
says, you can't a book with a good setting and plot but with bad characters is a bad book, but a book with good characters and a boring setting and plot is still a good book.
wow.
And I think that's very true for books with a good characterization.
Wow. That's great. That's true. Now, I also want to ask, what is the most challenging thing to you as a booktuber? And also, what are your hopes and expectations on BookTube? Love to start from Noah.
I think the most challenging thing is that they're so amazing. There's so many amazing booktubers out there already, and they've built their own communities and stuff. And I think that some viewers don't want to break away from that. So us wanting to build our own communities, that's going to be the biggest thing, the biggest challenge to get over more than anything. But yeah, my hopes are probably the same as everyone else's. You want to build that community. You want people to talk to. You want to have like-minded people around you. You want to be able to have a good time, laugh, everything with them.
That's great. Naomi.
Oh, I think for me, the hardest thing is to actually believe that what I produce and what I say is going to be interesting to other people. And sometimes I find it really hard to trust that what I have to say is worth sharing on a public platform. Uh, and I found that particularly hard when trying to encourage other people to watch my videos, because that feels that feels like pushing yourself forward in a way that I guess I was brought up not to. Um, so kind of what I'd like to do is get to the point where other people share my videos, so that it doesn't feel like me going around going, come and see my thing, come and see my thing. Yeah, and that it's actually people coming because they want to hear the things I'm saying and see the things that I'm doing. Yeah, but I think that's the thing.
Yeah. Oscar.
I mean, yeah, I can definitely relate to what Naomi said about, the thing about, trying to market yourself to get at least some viewers. At least for me, I also think that it can be very, very hard with the persistence, especially with my first couple of videos, where I had like zero comments and zero views and stuff like that. It's like it's hard to kind of get over the feeling that nobody's watching and stuff like that. I think there are a few watching now, but still, that's really a challenging part about making these videos. Also think with regards to the quality of my videos, I think the editing is very, very challenging if I want my videos to be great often. Also because I feel like if I just do one take recordings, I am very bad at like not making pauses when I speak and kind of keeping the focus of what I'm trying to say and not repeating myself. So I think the editing especially also is one of the very challenging parts. And then also, with regards to my hopes and expectations, my hopes are that I, at some point, get into the community enough so that I have a lot of people to talk about with and speak about books that I love. And I recently did a Mistborn review, and I got a few people that reacted to that and talked about that with me. So that was very interesting, and I think it kind of enhances the reader experience for me too, because then I can talk about them afterwards with someone.
That's fantastic. That's quite nice. I also want to ask, what book are you currently reading? If you have a copy, you can show to the viewers and show it us the book you're currently reading. We also start from you, Oscar.
Yes. So I'm currently reading book 3 of the Stormlight Archive, Oathbringer. I'm halfway through page 650 or something. And I really love this book as well, because with this book centers around one of the main characters that I enjoy reading the most. So yeah, and I think the character writing is just as good as it has been throughout the entire series. So yeah, yeah, so I gotta say.
That's great. Naomi.
But I never read just one book at a time. I've got two here that I'm going to say about, but also other books that I've got on my Kindle and so on. But first book is Sovereign, which is the second book by April Daniels of the Nemesis series. And at first glance, it's kind of, it's a superhero story. But Dreadnought herself, Danny, is such an interesting character as a transgender girl. So really excited to see how her character is going to develop. Now that bit has been dealt with, so we're going to maybe find out more about her. And I've also got El Defo, which is a graphic novel.
Oh.
And it seems to be now I've only just started. I've only read the first chapter, where the main character, who is a rabbit, has meningitis and becomes deaf at the age of 4. But I think this is going to be a really interesting way of looking. It appears to be a autobiographically written, obviously not by a rabbit, but by C.C. Bell. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what's in this one. So that's my 2 that I've got on the go at the moment.
Wow, that's amazing. Noah.
I'm actually currently reading The Troop by Nick Cutter. Basically a body horror sort of thriller where this guy brings out like his little scout sort of people to an island to basically learn some skills. And basically everything just goes downhill from there the first night, where just someone appears on the island and just an illness seems to appear. It's I'm very much enjoying it. I'm only about 200 pages in, but it's actually really good. Very graphic though.
I also want to ask, what is the saddest book you've ever read? I'd love to start from Noah.
See, this is where people would be disappointed, because I've never read a sad book before.
Oh,
And I wouldn't even know where to go to even look for one. I don't know if people would like recommend any to me right now. That would be amazing, and I can go and get them.
wow.
I know, shocking.
Yeah, it
Yeah. Oh no, there is one. An author named Tori Hayden written. Basically, she was I think it's a psychiatrist for children who had needs and stuff, and she would basically find out about it and go and help them. And there's one called Ghost Girl. So it just took me back, because it's been years since I've read it, and that one, when I read it when I was a lot younger, that was very upsetting because it was based on true things, but they changed the names and everything like that. It was shocking.
Wow.
That people go through that.
Oh, that's great. Naomi.
Now, I have been looking for this book on my shelves. I'm quite upset I can't find it. It's the first book that made me cry my eyes out was a book called Helen Keller's Teacher, and it was a book I randomly found in a clear out in my primary school teacher's classroom, and when I was about 8 or 9, and I saved this book from the bin with a ripped cover, and this is a book about Helen Keller. It's based on Helen Keller's biography of her teacher, Annie Sullivan. And it's the story of Annie and her brother in the workhouse. And then Annie's brother dies. Oh. And I just sobbed when this happened. And it was, I think part of it was that it was told through the eyes of this little girl who had a vision impairment, so she wasn't quite able to make sense of everything that was going on, and that just had a really big pull on me. So yeah, and that's like in the first part of the story. When everyone thinks about Helen Keller, they think about the life of. Oh, sorry, I have motorbikes going outside my house. But everyone thinks of Helen Keller as this really inspirational speaker and writer. But actually, the story of her close companion, Annie Sullivan, is so heartbreaking and so inspiring. And I think so many people don't talk about the fact that Helen Keller, who's like the famous one, that her closest friend and communicator was a blind woman herself. And it was just... It's probably very much shaped my career going forwards. So that I don't think I will ever forget that book. And I know I've got a copy of it around here somewhere, but I can't find it.
Oh, that's great fun. Oscar.
I would say, I haven't really read books that are really sad either. But I think the saddest book that I've read is a book called The Kite Runner. This is in Danish, so it's not the right title here, but The Kite Runner, written by Khaled Hosseini, which is basically about a boy who grows up in Afghanistan and then has to run and then escapes to England. I thought this book was basically about that character's life, and I think that it was a very realistic depiction of, I've never read a book that felt as realistic when I read it. It felt like this could have been a documentary about this boy's life. And there were, friendships broken, people who were like destroyed by the harsh environments that this boy grew up in. And, I think it was just very, very touching to read. And I've heard that it's I think it's called an auto fiction book. Don't quote me on that, but that's from what I understand, that's a genre where it's like it's not quite a biography, but it's like it could be based on the writer's life, but not really. It's still fiction, but it seems like it's based on the writer's life. So that's a very interesting kind of genre.
Wow, that's great. Well, according to me, I haven't really experienced a sad book, but I've heard quite a lot of things about Edgar Allan Poe's book, though I haven't read any. And now I think that since we're talking about the book that make us sad, shouldn't we talk about books that also make us happy? We should talk about books that make us happy. So I'd love to ask, is there any book you've ever read that make you extremely delighted? Lots to start from Oscar.
Sure. I would say there's this novella. I'm gonna sound like a very fanboyish, I guess, but it's a novella within the Stormlight Archive again. But it's called Edge Dancer, and it's based on this 12-year-old girl character within the story that we basically don't see a lot of, but it's very like childish and fun to read. And but she's also she's kind of trying to run away from adulthood. There's this There are these spren in the Stormlight Archive that are basically like spirits. Where she went to one, where she basically asked to not grow older, and she's kind of stuck in her ways with her childhood, but she's very fun to read and very, I think, very wholesome and genuine behind a kind of childish exterior. So I loved that book. I think it was very fun and very, very, despite some heavy themes, it was still a very lighthearted book. And that's probably the book that has made me the most happy to read.
That's great. Love to hear your opinion, Naomi.
Right. I guess everyone has these books you read, you go back to again and again to lift you up. And for me, that would be the Narnia Chronicles and the book Pollyanna. And actually, when you think about it, Pollyanna is a very it's all about being happy and being glad whatever's happening. But it is such a nicely, gently written book, and it was one of those books that I could go to when, and would still go to when I'm feeling a bit low, for that, reminding me, I suppose, of that childhood. And Voyage of the Dawn Treader from the Narnia Chronicles, it's just so nice. It is a really nice quest story, and it's very predictable. And I think that's the thing, when it makes you things are going to come out right in the end. Every character is going to learn their lesson and be better by the end of the story. And I think the Voyage of the Dawn Treader is one of those things that, if I need something really gentle to lift me up, that's one of my go-tos.
That's great. That's fantastic. How about you, Noah?
I guess mine would have to be, I've just recently read this book and it just made me feel so, I don't even know how to describe it. It's called Meddling Kids, and basically it's a homage to like the Scooby-Doo gang, where this group of people were detectives, basically grew up and got their own lives and stuff like that, but they all end up having to get back together again to basically figure out this old 13-year-old case that just traumatized them. But it's more the feeling of how it's very nostalgic because of how it's based off the Scooby-Doo gang. Like, all the characters, you even got a dog named Tim, which was very nice, and Tim's a good boy. but it's the whole Scooby-Doo thing where there's like a guy in a mask and stuff like that, and then, is it really? But it's beautiful, it's nostalgic. It makes me feel like when I was little and I used to watch things again, it was that sort of feeling, and that's why I really, that filled me with happiness more than anything.
Wow, that's quite amazing. That's quite amazing. And now this just come to me. I know that there are lots of reasons why we readers would pick up a book and never finish it. So I want to have your opinion. Is there a reason, or what would make you finish a book, or start a book rather, and not finish it? Love to start from you to know.
Oh, from me. I think the main reason I would pick up a book is mainly the title, if it seems interesting, or the cover of it. That sounds really bad that I base a book off the cover. Obviously, normally we try to go away from that, but unfortunately, I do that sometimes. I think the main thing that would make me stop, like putting the book down, it would be if there's some sort of if there's an issue with the print or something like that. Like, I was reading a book, and it's like the author just forgot about spaces, and on like the top part of like this page, it was just like a garble of lines, and I was just like, why is this a thing? Or the way that the characters talk would change to like it was a script. That was annoying. And then I'd just get off that and I'd put the book down and I'd move away from it, because it'd take me away from what's the word, like being involved in it and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's great. How about you, Naomi?
Okay, I'm Lord of the Rings. And some people will be very upset with me for not finishing Lord of the Rings. And some people will be there with me. I have tried reading Lord of the Rings a number of times. People say, you've got to read Lord of the Rings, you've got to read Lord of the Rings. I've read The Hobbit and I love it. I've read other fantasy in the same sort of way, but Lord of the Rings, it feels like the author has got Tolkien has got so bogged down in world building and creating a world that you end up with characters that it just gets too complicated and too slow. And I get to this bit where they're all sitting around the fire telling stories, and it's just like, there are so many better things to go and do in my life. I'm sorry, and I'm so sorry to all the Lord of the Rings fans. I mean, I went to university with someone who was who's still one of my best friends, despite the fact that he was in the Lord of the Rings Society and absolutely fanatical about Lord of the Rings, but it just doesn't do it for me. And also, are all the characters male in that? Because there's not very many interesting female characters in it at all. So sorry for the unpopular opinion.
No, I guess the thing about female characters is pretty fair criticism. But I love the Lord of the Rings. So I mean, I guess it also depends on how much you really like world building, and I get there's also a balance between moving the plot forward whilst world building, and I can definitely see your criticisms. I think if Lord of the Rings was written today, I don't think it would be published, purely because it takes so long to get started. Also, when you read the introductory chapter to The Hobbit, it's basically just pages and pages of descriptions of the Shire and the Hobbits without any action at all. And that's very rare, I'd say, today, at least in fantasy books. I think often times, if it's not, just a very poorly proofwritten book, it is the pacing. So I guess that kind of goes into the same criticisms that Naomi had about The Lord of the Rings.